So, I mean, you just have to ask your questions, right? And I think some firms kind of hope that you're not going to ask a ton of questions just because they need numbers, right? Hi, my name's Brad. This is my wife, Marianne, and this is Real Estate for Real People. And today we're talking about questions that a new agent would want to ask a brokerage. And this may be a part one, part two, because there's a lot of them, right? So we don't want to go over all of them in one shot because, well, it'd just be here forever.
And this is kind of trailing off of last week's podcast that we did, talking about what does it take to get into the real estate profession. So this week, for sure, and maybe next week, we'll be digging into questions, like that you might want to ask a firm or office and give you some insight as to why those questions might be important.
So I'll ask the questions and then we can banter back and forth.
Perfect.
What do you think? Okay. So what type of salesperson? So I'm the agent and I'm asking you, the person, the recruiter, or the person who's interviewing for the firm. So are you looking for full-time or part-time agents?
So there are two ways to look at this, right? So from an office standpoint, that's important to know because offices obviously are dependent on production of agents. So some offices will only want to hire full-time agents. Others are happy to just hire full-time agents and have them pay their monthly fees over and over and over again.
Part-time agents, you mean?
Part-time agents, yes, sorry. So that's important to know. You need to know for yourself as an agent, what is your intent as far as the amount of time and energy that you are going to put into real estate? Is it going to be your full-time job, or is it just, gig on the side?
Yeah, there's a number of people that will just do it basically for their nails and their car payment, right? I mean, just for the fun stuff, kind of ancillary money. They kind of like to play around in it. And
a little extra travel.
Right, yeah. And so that may or may not, I mean, if it is what you want to be as an agent, that's totally fine. But you just got to remember that not every office is going to want you if that's your thought process.
Sure.
This is a fantastic profession for people coming out of another profession to stay active and earning income, but at the same time not talking to the man 9 to 5 type thing. So
able to work for yourself, have a flexible schedule, and there are pros and cons and challenges with that.
True. Yeah. So is there a local office? And what does that provide? Why does anyone even need to ask, is there a local office? Don't all real estate offices have offices?
Actually, no.
Oh, okay.
There are a number of companies that are strictly virtual. They don't have a place that you can go to interact with agents, to get help one-on-one in a physical space, and some of us need that. Some of us don't do so well in just doing digital and being online all the time. It can get really lonely, in all honesty. So the important part of that question is to know for yourself what you need. As a new agent, as a brand new agent to the profession, that would make me a little anxious to just be out there on my own and not have a place to connect.
Right.
We find that most of our agents do better when they are connected to other agents on a regular basis, in community, in family, in whatever. And I think we've all experienced separation during COVID. And we've gained some things and lost some things during that time. And my observation is that those folks that really liked being, for lack of a better word, siloed, they like to be on their own, they've had a hard time coming back. So all that to say, having it on the office or being virtual, you have to know your own internal style, needs, all that
Yeah.
kind of thing.
And I guess to speak to the issue, there's a lot of companies who are kind of reinventing what they think real estate could be. And so they're when our firm, when that franchise came into existence in the mid 2000s, there were very few commission structures like the one that we do,
Right.
where you still had full service and all that stuff of an office, and a very fun office, but at the same time, full support, right? And now they've kind of taken it one step further down the road, some of these other firms, and they've eliminated the offices altogether. And when you don't have big offices, you don't have a ton of overhead.
Right.
Right. So no utilities, no building payments, no leases, none of that stuff. The good and the bad of that is they say that you're going to get paid more. But do you? And then the other side of that is you now, as an agent, a brand new agent, you may have one designated broker for every agent in your state. And, like in Washington State here, that may be 5,000 or 6,000 agents in one of those companies statewide. And so the chance of you hearing from your designated broker or your managing broker if you have a question is almost nothing, right? We've had a number of agents come over from firms like that, and that's been their biggest complaint. I've been there for 8 months. I still haven't received an email or a call or a text back from any one of my questions.
Yeah.
So, as a new agent, you got to be very careful that you're not bedazzled by, we do all this training and we pay all this money and there's, multi-level marketing levels of exponential money and all those things, right? That stuff that just dazzles you, because when you're new, you don't even know what questions to ask. And so
That's the reason for our podcast.
right. Yeah, truly. So you just have to be careful about what you're looking at and make sure that you ask the right questions, which is why we want everybody, if they're brand new agents, to download the document that's got all these questions for you. Just take the document in with you and ask the questions. Yeah.
I think it's going to be attached again. We attached it, or Wayne, our video guy, attached it last week for you. So we'll do that again this week so you don't have to go searching for it. I think the other piece about having somebody virtual is that they not only may they not be available to answer questions and give support in a timely manner, but at the end of the day, what are they doing to help you grow your business? It's not just about surviving, it's about thriving. So can you do that on your own without any support and assistance, or not much anyway? So, yeah. Things to be aware of.
Agreed. So another question that all new agents need to ask is, do you have a mentor program, and how does that work, and what does it cost? So, we've done a lot of new hires.
We done a majority of new hires.
With ink still wet on the license new. And because of that, we've had to put a pretty robust mentor program together. And, we love that, but you have to understand as a new agent that there's firms out there that won't hire you if you're not experienced. And if they do, you're going to be on like a 50-50 commission split, meaning half of your commission check goes to the firm because, you're kind of considered a pain because you're so needy as a new agent. And there's nothing wrong with being needy. I mean, there's a lot to learn, but you've got to understand what the firm is looking for in agents. So, not every firm offers training and coaching and mentoring of new agents. So you definitely have to ask, what's your mentor program like? Because, there are some people that say, well, yeah, we'll have this agent work with you and they'll take you through the process of writing an offer. Well, one offer is never good enough. And if you don't have a dedicated mentor and there's no skin in the game for them as far as financially, the chance of them actually taking time out of their busy schedule to help you when they're not getting paid is going to be rare, right? So you got to make sure that you're talking or asking the right questions when it comes to a mentor program.
And from the point of view of learning, being education as my background, numbers of repetitions of working on something is what is really, at the end of the day, going to embed that knowledge base into your practice. So that's the reason that in our firm, our mentees work with their mentor for at least 5 transactions. And in those 5 transactions, our hope is that you do at least one purchase, you do at least one listing, hopefully a condo or a multifamily, so you get a taste of each one of those types of transactions. So to Brad's point, making sure that whoever you're talking to in an office can lay out what that looks like, what the expectations are for you, what the expectations are for your mentor, how they get paid, or what kind of reimbursement comes to them. Those are, you'll want to ask get kind of into the nitty gritty on that. Just not, oh, do you have a mentor program? Because they can say yes easily and not really give you much information.
Yeah,
So.
And there are entities out there that say, oh, we have a great mentor program. And then they neglect to tell you that it's $800 out of your pocket to be a part of it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you just have to ask your questions, right? And I think some firms kind of hope that you're not going to ask a ton of questions just because they need numbers. Right. So there are some franchises out there that require the owner of that franchise to hire a percentage. For example, 10%. So if they have 200 agents now in the firm, they're supposed to hire 20 new agents a month. And that is, there's a lot of low-hanging fruit that they go after just to keep their quota up. Whether they can support them or not is a completely different question.
Not only that, I think it speaks to the culture.
Yeah.
If an office is working on really building a specific kind of culture, we call it culture in our company, then we at Realty One Group are looking to hire people that have the same kind of why, that they get out of bed in the morning for a specific reason, and that's not necessarily money, although we all have to make a living, but it's really about serving others. So knowing what a company's why is going to be extremely important to finding an office that fits well with who you are and what gets you out of bed in the morning. It's hard sometimes. Some days it's hard enough to go to work just to do the work. But if it's a hard place to go to, that makes it even tougher.
Yeah. So one of the things that I don't think many, even seasoned agents, may not think to ask is, are you a big corporate brand? Are you an indie brand? Are you a boutique? What are you? Do you specialize in high end? Do you specialize in a certain part of downtown? Right? So where you do real estate matters, whether you're in the city or the country, because like in our offices, our agents work 2 or 3 counties. Right. To do their real estate business. And there are some offices like downtown Portland, there's offices and all they do is work the Pearl District. Right. So it's a 10 square block area of town, and that's all they do. Because there's enough condos and whatnot down there that they can all make a living doing that. So if you're in the country, a more rural agent is going to be expected to understand a whole different raft of things than a city agent, for example. So understand where you want to be and where you're going. If you already live downtown and you're going to work in an office downtown, you just have to understand your crowd. You have to understand your firm, because some firms have 400, 500, 600 people in them, and others have 6. So you need to understand where you feel comfortable, right? We've had agents here who have walked in after a long absence, and they walk in and they see all the new people, and they're like, who are these people? And all of a sudden, right. Well, so we look at it as growth, and they look at it as this isn't my family anymore because I don't know any of these people, right? And so it's
disengagement will do that.
Yeah, well, and it does. But at the same time, it's, you have to understand what you want, right? And it's not a bad thing that agent was kind of shocked when she walked in. Yeah. But at the same time, you have to understand that if you're comfortable in huge crowds, then make sure that you ask the question, are you a big corporate office? How many agents do you have here?
So I think the other piece about that question, though, is that whether you're connected to a larger corporate entity, which we are, but we are independently owned as an office. So there is a connection, but we're not a corporate office. We're an affiliate in our case. But the other pieces I think to be aware of is that there are tools that you may be afforded at a much more reasonable price and amount if you're with a larger corporation that can advocate for good pricing for your database, for your website, for the tools that you're going to need to maintain and grow your business. Not all independent, small indie, small boutique brokerages will be able to get those for you at that same rate, if at all.
Right, because they lack the scale.
Right. So those are also some things to take into consideration.
Yeah. And again, it's questions you don't even know you need to ask, right? It's the difference between buying in volume and not buying in volume, right? So when you've got 20,000 agents or 100,000 agents that you're buying a software program for, everybody gets that at a much reduced rate.
Yes, exactly.
Whereas if you've got 6, everybody's basically paying full price, right? So it makes working at a boutique, it can make working at a boutique, smaller office that doesn't have any corporate structure far more expensive, right? And really only for seasoned agents who already have all their own systems in place.
Agreed.
Yeah. So another question to ask, because this is kind of the big trend going forward right now, is are you focusing on bringing on solo agents or teams? Why would that matter? And what does some of the offices out there, what do they do as soon as a solo agent shows up?
Well, depending on the firm, oftentimes when solo agents show up, one of the strategies for an office would be to assign them to a team.
Right.
Or offer to put them on a team, because oftentimes those teams are providing leads. It makes it a smaller organizational piece that you can connect with.
Almost like an office within an office.
Yeah, exactly. The possible downside of all that is that there is a large piece of your commission as a team member that is going to go to the team lead.
And the firm after that.
Right. So, something to be aware of. One of the questions that you might want to ask is, how many teams do you have? If I'm not on a team, how do you provide those things as an office? There are pros and cons to teams, and I think my opinion is that oftentimes when you go to somewhere that has a team, the individual agents get lost. When their focus is on bringing on teams. Teams can have a very positive effect in the office, to an office's bottom line, all that kind of thing. It also depends, I think, on how large the geographic area is.
Right.
We don't have a lot of teams in our area. We're small compared to a lot of population centers, right? And so we don't have a lot of teams in our area. We have husband-wife partnerships. We have a lot of those in our office.
And then small 2- and 3-man teams.
Yes.
Right.
In our
geographic
area. We have one team in our office right now.
Right.
And figuring out and maneuvering that sometimes can be a challenge.
Right.
So asking those questions. What follow up? What happens if I don't fit in with my team?
Right. Can I go to another one?
Can I go to another one? Can I work independently? How does that work?
Yeah. So we've seen. So we tend to rescue a number of agents who are unhappy where they are, and so one of the things that comes up a lot is, I'm actually only taking home 30% of the commission check after all my fees go to the team and the firm and the bottom line, the transaction fees and all those things. Mm-hmm. So when you work on a team, what you sacrifice in not having to spend money for your own advertising, you lose in the potential income you could make. Mm-hmm. So if you've got a 50-50 split off the top to your team, and then another 20 or 30% to the firm, and then you've got taxes and stuff after that. It's all important to understand that it's going to hit your bottom line mm-hmm. some way or another. Mm-hmm. So either you're a solo agent and you have to pay for your own lead gen and that kind of stuff, or do your own lead gen in a cost-effective way, and get all the commissions, or you're on a team and you're taking one for the team, basically, right? So you're going to get far less income, but you're hopefully going to have more steady work and leads. Mm-hmm.
So in my mind, as you're talking about that, one of the pieces is that when you're on a team, you sacrifice some autonomy. So you don't have as much control over your business. You're depending on others to help create your business. Speaking for our office, one of our goals is to help you build your business, your
brand,
your future, your legacy, whatever that is. And that's hard to do, in my opinion. That's hard to do on a team.
Oh, it is. Well, you're building the team's brand. You're never going to build your own brand. Right. Yeah. Yeah, that's for sure. So when it comes to, so I had a question here. How is your brokerage evolving with the times?
Oh.
Okay.
So it's an awesome question, because if you look around at some of the other offices, some of the other companies, mm-hmm. and you go back to, let's say the 1980s, take a look and see how much. Okay, maybe that's a little far back. Go back to the 1990s and see how much they have or have not involved with their marketing, with their technology, with all those pieces.
Their use of office space.
One of our taglines is that I love for our meetings is what's new, what's next. So there's an anticipation that we are always out there looking at what the needs of the clients, the needs of the agents are, and finding tools to fill those need gaps. Find out when you're interviewing brokerages how those offices, how those companies are doing that.
Right. So we've seen some people in our little town who have been in offices that have been open since the 70s. Everybody's got a big tent. All the big producers, all the elite agents have these big offices around the perimeter of the space and full of cherry wood furniture and all their awards and all that stuff, right? And for some people, that is, if you have not evolved, that is a big deal for you, right? And there's a lot of firms out there now that do not care at all if you have a dedicated space. If you want to hop into a cubicle once in a while, that's fine. You can do general open space. You can rent an office if you wish. But we all understand in this industry that nobody's really out there generating leads if you're sitting in your office.
Sure.
Inside your ivory tower, so to speak, right? Your place that's safe, your happy place, right? So it's one of those things where you just have to understand that business is not made in the office. Mm-hmm. Business is made outside of the office. Mm-hmm. Your sphere of influence, your leads, your showings, right? All that kind of stuff. Where you really need to focus in the office is on your paperwork and your transactions, mm-hmm. right? That's really the only reason you should be in the office outside of, trainings and meetings and that kind of stuff. But So
and lead gen, I would say, doing that work to connect with clients other than in person, yes, real estate is a belly to belly business.
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, you're not going to, we as agents are not able to do that with all of our clients or all of our potential clients. So there's also some time that needs to be used to work on your business that way
Right.
as well. Doing lead gen, reaching out, adding people to your database, writing notes, all those kinds of things.
Yeah,
So,
agreed.
but again, you could do that anywhere. You don't have to have a dedicated office to do that.
No. Well, and I guess there's a difference between having a home office and having a work office.
Yeah.
There are a number of people who work well from home because they can isolate and they can focus and they don't care about Netflix and they don't care about the dog's food and they don't care about their laundry and the vacuuming.
It's not that they don't care; they can ignore it.
Right. They can choose to ignore it.
While they're working.
Right. And there's others who cannot.
Yes.
For any reason.
Yes.
Right? That laundry pile, it's almost like it's talking to them.
Yes.
Right? So those people who can't function at home really need to be able to work at an office if they want dedicated time that they can focus.
The other piece is, I think, that it's about community. Again, those conversations that you have with other agents on the fly, just because they're in the office, those become really golden nuggets, right?
Sure.
Of how to do your business, grow your business, where you get ideas from.
Right.
So
Yeah, agreed.
we have a lot of people who work in our open spaces, and if it's too noisy, too loud, then we have others little spaces that they can go and be quieter, but choose to be present when they want to be.
Right. Yeah, it's important. So let's talk, as we wrap this thing up, let's talk about how do I get paid in real estate? How does the whole pay thing happen? I know, so I close a loan and a check is generated, but then what happens? Right?
So
Do I get paid every 2 weeks? Am I a W-2 employee?
Oh, you are not a W-2 employee. You have the opportunity to be an independent business owner, and you get to pay your own taxes. So put some aside every time you get paid. There is great freedom and great challenge with being an independent contractor.
Mm-hmm.
You get paid when you close on a transaction, and you don't necessarily know when that next transaction is going to close. I mean, there's not a predictability of, like when I was in education, I knew I was going to get paid on the last Friday or the fourth Friday of the month, or last day of the month or whatever, and it was like clockwork, and so I could plan out all my bills and do all that. Not the case in this business.
Really?
So yeah, really.
Huh.
So nitty-gritty process. When the transaction closes, title gets the check, title sends the check to our office, and then bookkeeper does their piece, and this is going to vary from office to office. One of the questions I would ask is, what is the timeline from the time that the office gets the check?
Yep.
Because sometimes they don't have control over when title actually sends it to them or
Right.
wires it to them.
Right.
How much time can I anticipate it's going to take from the time that the office gets the check to the time that I get my payment?
Right. And what's
Into my
required
bank.
to get my payment?
And what's required. So in our office, for example, all the paperwork has to be ready to go in our compliance electronic file cabinet. We call it SkySlope. So if that paperwork isn't done, we'll wait to pay you until it's all up and ready to go.
Right.
That sounds kind of harsh. However, it's for the firm's health and safety. It's for the agent's health and safety to keep them out of the court of law, hopefully, and then for auditing purposes. So that's a big deal. Not everybody likes paperwork. We get that, but it's kind of an essential piece of this business.
Yeah. Well, and it's important to know that as an agent, you submit the forms for your pay to title.
Oh, yeah.
Title kicks the money back to the firm. The firm then turns around and pays you. You get this gross amount of money, and there's no taxes pulled out of it. Like in Washington, we'll pull B&O taxes out.
And B&O stands for?
Business and occupation tax. And there's a city portion, there's a state portion, blah, blah, blah. But outside of that, you've got to save your own money, right? So we're telling everybody in the beginning, you got to put at least 20% of your check away into a tax savings account, right? And there is an entirely different conversation that we have to have with people as they evolve in the business. You know, when do you...
As they grow their business.
Right, as they grow in their business. So when do you create an LLC? When do you put that LLC inside an S Corp? What are your taxes that you should be saving away? And is it 0 to 100,000 and then a bigger amount, 100 to 200, bigger amount, 200 to 300?
So that's a process as you grow your business.
Yes.
That you need to get some advice and
Some guidance.
assistance on.
Yeah, for sure. And that's one of the most important things of helping agents understand how to brand their business. It's also how to run their business, because it is truly a business, right? Mm-hmm. And so you're going to have to do bookkeeping, and you're going to have to keep your receipts, and you're going to have to track your mileage, and you got to do all these things. So it all kind of wraps into how and when I get paid, but it all starts with you actually getting out there and doing the real estate stuff. And you know, where great reward comes, great risk also sits.
And great responsibility.
Yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm. So if you have any questions or you want to talk a little more about any of the stuff that we've talked about today, hit subscribe and feel free to drop us a question, and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. Outside of that, thanks for showing up.
Like, comment, and share. We'd appreciate it.